Hey guys, welcome back to Molon Lave Wargaming. This is the setup for the January 3rd, 1942 turn. We left off last turn with something of a highly successful area denial campaign with successful naval strikes in Rangoon, Talat Jap, and Timor. Although the Timor strike wasn't really area denial, that was more, we know they're there, so we might as well hit them. In any case, we definitely kicked down the front door to Singapore with Oscar sweeps, and we've reduced enemy fighter presence there to a small shadow of what it used to be, so that kind of leads into what our main objective for this turn is. But still kind of sticking with the counterclockwise pattern we've been working on. China, there's not really much talking about. In Burma, we did, I don't know if this is technically Burma, but we did reach Mergui, so we're going to be attacking there. This unit next to Alor Star and Patani, we're resting on attacking them. Several units arrived in Kuala Lumpur, including the 21st Division, so they are now unpacking from strategic mode. Then as for Singapore, so instead of the tactic I'd been trying to use, which was set up sweeps to try to arrive first and get them to arrive first by having the sweeps based closer and flying at a lower altitude, so it takes less time for them to get up to altitude. That wasn't working very well for whatever reason. So this time, as we resume bomber operations, I'm trying to pair bomber squadrons with fighter squadrons locally. That was the other thing I was trying to do before. It's like, because the fighters were mostly based closer, the bombers were supposed to pick up escorts as they flew over the fighter base that was in between them and the target. We're not doing that anymore. So instead, with slight altitude variations, we're assigning almost one for one. One bomber squadron gets one fighter squadron, and we've divided them up between Kodabaru and Kwantan. So we're going to see how that works. And I don't think I have any sweeps at all. It's all escorts all day. So that should work out. I mean, the escorts still need to fly for it to work, but there shouldn't be any bombers flying without escorts. And in any case, hopefully the number of aircraft they can put up is just going to be pitifully small. 2 fighters reported active at Johore and 0 at Singapore. That said, we've had worse going on, but if this works out, I mean, how many bombers are we talking about? So we've got about 40 bombers flying out of Kwantan, and then another 30, 40, we'll call it 60 bombers flying out of Kodabaru. So they're going to get 100 bombers today. Oh yeah, and plus Kuching. Kuching's got another 40 bombers. Only 30 of them on assignment, so potentially up to 130 bombers hitting Singapore today. Of course, these guys are also on naval strike priority, as are the Nels and Kodabaru. So if there are ships for them to hit, that takes priority, and they have zeros assigned to them as escorts for those missions. So maybe we hit Talat Jap again. On the Banda C, we've rebased quite a bit, and if I activate my search areas, you can see it's been a bit simplified from what it was, but also kind of more thorough. This is our territory now, for all practical purposes. If they're going to send ships here, we're going to see them, and we're going to bomb them in short order. For the time being, we don't have torpedo ordnance in Ambon yet, but it's going to get there pretty soon. So we've got Zeros and Bettys operating out of here. There's a Claude squadron here too. They can't quite make the flight, and I can't quite upgrade them to Zeros yet, but I would expect that Ambon would become an eligible base to do that from as it develops. So just something for me to keep in mind. And if not, there's always the the ferry to Japan option, or maybe even Manila would be the better option to do that with now. Air capacity just 3 right now. Yeah, maybe I'd just take them all the way to Japan to be sure. So the mini KB is doing a lot of ASW because we've got 3 submarines in close proximity to the amphibious group that's going to be moving to Loughton. Carrier Division 3 is going to back off a little bit from the submarine contact and just head back around to the Solomons operation area. Carrier Division 2, that's not who that is. Carrier Division 2 is here. Is proceeding back to Babel Doab as planned. I'm hoping to be able to replenish aircraft supplies. Numbers of aircraft, really, because we've lost quite a few of them. Fuel status isn't great either. I've got something like 5 oilers converging on Babel Doab. One's already there. This is a second one. There's another one coming from the truck area, and then 2 are going to work their way from Saigon over to there. They'll be stopping at Brunei en route. That's where they're going to actually get their fuel, since this is a fuel-producing base. Actually, I guess it's Miri that produces the fuel, but Brunei has the bigger port, so that's where I'm actually going to take the fuel from. But in any case, they're all going to get together, and then we should have a halfway decent replenishment group to use in the Dutch East Indies going on in the future. Rebasing some of the troops that we used to take over the Marianas, so we'll have reasonably sized forces on Wake and Marcus, and they'll be able to eventually take scout aircraft when they become available. The invasion of Port Moresby will take place on the next turn. That's going to be supported by Carrier Division 1 with strikes on enemy ground forces while the operation's going on. We don't have a whole lot of gunfire support organic to the task force, so we're kind of hoping that cover of night is going to reduce any naval gunfire. But you look at this unit, they've got 18 guns present. Some of those are going to be AA guns. I'm not expecting a whole lot of resistance like we had in Rabaul. Last thing to note, the attack on the enemy cargo ship that took place last turn was in this hex, 182-104. Based on where this submarine is patrolling, I'd say it was the I-124 that took the shot. Actually, let's not be stupid about this. Yeah, it's the I-24 that took the shot, which means he's not going to be in position to do a follow-up attack. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that that ship made it to Pearl Harbor and is going to survive, sadly. But hey, at least we know we're positioned in a route that the enemy is using to approach Pearl Harbor. So maybe we'll get another shot at somebody soon. One more thing. Always forget one thing for the end. Something I didn't notice in the post-turn analysis is we have company again in Cabantuan. Looks like some enemy tanks decided to advance back up and kind of mess with us. So they're probably going to attack this turn. We're prepared to receive them, sort of. We've got this relatively weak paratrooper marine unit. They're backed up with some field artillery, so it's not like they're completely helpless against tanks. I think these 150mm howitzers can probably work a tank over pretty good. It's just a question of can they hit them. So half of the bombers operating out of Vigan are going to strike this hex to try to protect our Marines there. Meanwhile, the other half is just going to continue bombing the airbase at Clark, in part just to make sure their supplies keep getting worn down and they can't build up any more fortifications than they already have. We don't have our full force at Clark yet. In particular, these 2 divisions have not arrived, but they will arrive this turn. They've only got 2 more miles to go. So if the enemy at Clark thinks they can attack and they're going to get a weakened force, they're actually going to get 2 more divisions than they thought they were going to get. And with that, I'll close it out. I'll see you in the combat replay. Combat replay for January 3rd now in progress, and we are knocking these turns out really quick. Might not be apparent on YouTube because for OPSEC I'm kind of slow rolling these out. This has got to be like the 4th turn that we've managed to complete in a little over 24 hours. Alright, let's get these subs. All we're doing is running them out of ammo. I've got more quality depth charge equipped destroyers on the way. Come on. Damn it. And these are the subs attacking my destroyers. Not even the destroyers attacking the subs. Okay, maybe this time? Yeah, that was an ASW attack, but the subs still managed to get away after the dive. Yeah, at least we're doing it to him, too. Alright, amphibious landing at Port Moresby in progress. Doesn't look like we're taking a whole lot of return fire. Just go ahead and fast forward. Yeah, so it doesn't look like there's any significant resistance coming back. Some significant casualties coming over the beach. Whatever. So they got a base force firing back at us this time, including a 6-inch gun. Hit one of our ships pretty badly. Activity at Pago Pago. This is pretty funny. We're still carrying bombs. Don't know why we're carrying bombs. Here's the first raid. Looks like we've got a decent number of escorts here. They didn't respect their assignments. But at least the first one to arrive is the one that drew extra escorts, it looks like. Just better than the escorts arriving late, because at least we're going to wear their cap down with this. Alright, 1-1 so far. And they all get through. Alright, not a bad start at all. Came out ahead in the air battle. Got a hit on the Javelin. I think it was an 800 kilogram. Yeah, so that's going to hurt the Java pretty badly. Pretty good weather for air raids in Clark. So 37 Lilies hit the airbase. It's not a whole lot of damage for good weather. Guess that's what I get for bombing from high altitude. We did increase to 20,000 feet because of the flak losses yesterday. Sally's versus enemy tanks. I think this is Cabanatuan. Oh, this unit's badly damaged already. It's only getting worse. Severe storms in this hex. Yeah, it doesn't look like we hurt him that badly. Hopefully we got some disruption. Next raid on Singapore. Didn't see any shoot-downs, but we got the bombers through. Looks like we had one hit on Prince of Wales. I doubt that was an armor-penetrating hit. We really need the 800 kilogram bombs to work that ship over. Ooh, an unescorted raid. Yeah, so... Fortunately, they just didn't really have enough to deal with it. Okay, so we've confirmed the presence of both Prince of Wales and Repulse with this raid. Again, we're struggling to penetrate the armor with these bombs. Yep, that does it for the morning raids. Hopefully we'll get some more Nels over the target soon. At least we got one of them. Somebody do nothing. Ooh, got a subtender. And the minesweeper. A couple minesweepers, I think 3 minesweepers hit. That's costing us, though. I think at least 4 Vals lost to flak. We get 2 minesweepers sunk, possibly a 3rd minesweeper sunk, and we've, unfortunately, the subtender's going to survive. So it's, I'd say we probably broke even. not especially valuable ships. And it's more the pilots that were probably lost that I'm concerned about, rather than the loss of the Vals themselves. So that's only a fraction of what I allocated to Singapore that actually flew. In particular, we didn't get as many Nells flying. So not the huge event I was hoping for. Here we go, finally attacking one of these subs. And we have no accuracy. Alright, let's see what they really have here at Clark. I'm going to take a moment to review some of these. Let's see if any of these big numbers are associated with units that actually look like they're strong. Okay, so the 4th Marine Regiment might be a big deal, with 138. All these PA infantry divisions, I don't think they're very good in game terms. Alright, so according to the summary, we're looking at 967 AV, which is gonna be a tough nut to crack if our AV is accurate, although that might be understated since this was a bombardment attack. Another thing to just kind of keep in mind about the Philippines is if I've got them confined to Clark and or the Bataan Peninsula, I don't necessarily need to do anything else, especially if I can successfully run them out of supplies, because then they won't be able to operate aircraft out of Clark. So I could just do things elsewhere, and then when other Army divisions don't have anything better to do, we can circle back to the Philippines and finish off that American-Philippine force. So it appears we have overwhelming force in Port Moresby based on the enemy's probing attack. Well, not really a probing attack, it's a reflexive bombardment. The player didn't even order it. Yeah, there's my garrison damage from being an idiot and moving all the troops out. Okay, reviewing the turn. This was a fairly uneventful one. We didn't suffer major coordination losses for Singapore, but we didn't really get the volume of the attacks that we wanted either. That said, you know, we avoided any major disasters and we're making progress on the ground. So I really don't have that much to complain about. You can see a very small victory point advantage here. Air losses for us, I'd say pretty much completely acceptable. The most noteworthy loss would be the 4 Vals lost to flak over Darwin. And we basically traded those 4 aircraft for 2 coastal minesweepers and possibly a 3rd seagoing minesweeper. That isn't necessarily worth it, especially if we didn't get the seagoing minesweeper, which can serve as a decent ASW escort. Other than that, our losses are just kind of routine operational losses. Even the number of planes lost over Singapore is quite routine and acceptable. With you know, 2 Oscars and a Sally shot down. Oh no, how terrible. It's really not too much to review there. Sinkings, not a whole lot going down today. Got credit for the HDML hit by a bomb at Rangoon, and then the 2 coastal minesweepers that sank in Darwin, and that's it. So we're leveling off a bit on victory point gains. Not really much going on with sunken ships, and we can see the air losses going down quite a bit. But after these peaks with Japanese air losses in recent days, I don't feel so bad about being down here. I can live with that. We did get one interesting alert. Insufficient resources for light industry at Port Arthur. That got my attention. So that's something we're going to have to take a look at to make sure we're doing the right thing by my convoys. And actually, you know what? Right off the top, I know what this is going to be. Because I have resource convoys taking resources from Port Arthur to Japan. And what I didn't consider while I was doing that was just how much Port Arthur actually needs those resources for its own industry. So, do I maintain optimal production in Korea, which is generating supplies that aren't going to be available in Japan, but could be available in China through these railroads that I'm so keen on keeping open and unobstructed? Or would I rather just have those in Japan, because the more resources I have in Japan, the longer I'm going to be able to hold out during the endgame? So, as I frequently say, that's something I'm going to have to think about. Because, yeah, these convoys have completely drained the resources out of Port Arthur. So, reviewing the map, we still have 6 confirmed submarines sitting outside Tokyo. We have an alert here for something. That's low supplies. Okay. Yeah, I've got a lot of supply flows going out of Japan, and that's triggering alerts. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that the supply situation this early in the game is as bad as it is. I may have to expand heavy industry, which I'm a little bit reluctant to do because that's going to cost me fuel. And it's also going to cost me a lot of supply just to get that heavy industry started up. So I think it's going to take me something like a year just to make up the sunk cost of that supply expansion, so I'm not even sure that's worth it. Anyhow, currently, we've got a supply run that decided to pass through this hex. That wasn't very smart. We've got 6 ASW ships operating in this hex at the moment, and I'm fairly sure I have more on the way. It might be who this is. Yes. So another ship with the Mod 2 depth charges on its way. And they'll join up with one of the other destroyer task forces. We can see the Tayo is leaving. It came with Clods. It's leaving with Zeros. Speaking of which, let's just take a quick look at our zero pools. We're back up to 10. So in theory, we could up another, or convert another detachment of Clods. Maybe even convert some of those Clods on the baby KB if we wanted to get them back. Although I'm going to have to say right now, priority for those Zeros in the pool is going to be replacing losses from my land-based units. So we now have 2 enemy units that are sitting astride my rail line here. Well, it's not really my rail line because it's going to Chinese-held bases. This is kind of a nothing area. And we're also seeing that the unit that we thought had crossed the river is still sitting there. So they didn't consolidate with these guys after all. In position to clear these guys out, so that's good news. This unit might be running, because I think the reason why this unit isn't moving is because it was moving to where this one was, and it got out of the way. So we're still chasing some enemy units around behind our lines. It still appears that the enemy coming over the mountains is continuing to either just kind of wait there, or in the case of this one, to move east towards my rail line. So continuing cause for concern there. Even though the enemy seems to have a numerical advantage in this hex, they're not attacking. And that's good news for us, because these are not frontline troops. These are, these temp divisions, NCPC, I'm not even sure what that is. These are rear echelon troops. Here, let me show you what I mean by that. Low experience, low morale. I think morale is really more indicative of training, rather than sort of like an emotional X factor, as it might imply, in part because when you set a unit to rest in training, their morale tends to go up. Anyways, but I don't necessarily want these guys fighting the best of what China has to offer. Not that we necessarily know that that is what's here. As I look at this unit, I think I see a little indicator pointing east, so they may be sending more troops in there. Fortunately for me, so am I. We have portions of the 35th Division moving there, as well as the 116th Division on the way. So we will hopefully be able to hold up that line while we continue to break these guys up, and then once that happens, maybe we can make a move here. And of course we've got our troops moving up the road to Cyan, and all indications are right now Cyan's basically undefended. And we're not seeing a whole lot of troops here either. So we may get behind and take these bases that we're really interested in, and then we can kind of take this cluster out as a mop-up operation. Already, this over here is the main road supplying this area. There's a secondary road coming up through here, and that's going to be cut off when we take Cyan. If we get it. Don't want to count my chickens before they hatch on that. But right now it's looking pretty good. I'm seeing an indicator here. So those are my 2 tank regiments that I bought recently. So they will be arriving probably in Taiyuan tomorrow. And then of course we've got this division and this regiment basically ready to get involved whenever. For the time being, we're going to move across here and then start to clear out this road. If this unit steps out onto the road, then that may become my priority target instead of taking out these guys first. Although something to keep in mind is this group with 5 units and 23,000 troops may be too much for this group of 9,000 troops to deal with. Is it too much for 9,000 troops plus 2 tank regiments to handle? Well, maybe that'll be just fine. But we'll see. There's definitely something to be said for defeating these weaker enemy units in detail first, before proceeding to the larger one. Up in the north, everything seems to be going okay. I have a little bit of a choice to make as this unit advances. Do I go off-roading and join the push for Lanchow, or do I just take the main road and start turning west with that smaller road? I don't know. I don't have to decide for at least until he moves the next hex up. So, got a decent number of ships on port at Rangoon. some that may be worth hitting, especially if there's cargo ships and cruiser mine layers there. Wouldn't mind taking out the ASW escorts too. I care less about these guys, and I'm kind of frustrated that, you know, the submarine I have here isn't just like surfacing and picking these guys off with his deck gun, since we keep seeing that these guys are adrift and out of fuel or whatever. I don't know why they can't just move that one hex back, but whatever that is, what's happening. So here's some cause for alarm. We have an enemy unit on the road. It is unidentified, and it is opposite Rahang. Now, Rahang has a relatively modest garrison here, consisting of a third of an RTA divisions, and RTA divisions are weak, both in terms of quality and in numbers. Like, a full RTA division is not a Japanese division, so this is just 50 AV, whereas like a third of a Japanese division would be 140 AV. So much weaker. We're moving a base force in from this hex, and we have 2 RTA divisions here. Does this base have a garrison requirement? No, it doesn't. So I think what's going to happen is we'll be reacting to the presence of this unit by moving these 2 RTA divisions forward, especially since there's no indication of anybody coming down this road. We're also going to get some recon assets on this guy to identify him, and we have a tank regiment in position. So it's just a relatively short move for him to come up here and take the road, and we may be able to surround him and like really defeat him badly, as in eliminate the unit. So what I may want to do is just let him come. Let him come into Rahang, let him take the shock attack for crossing the river, and then once that happens, the tank will go in, close his only avenue of retreat, and that'll be that. There were also 2 regiments of troops that I held in reserve at Bangkok that were intended for Singapore. I held them in reserve in Bangkok, partly because we've got the rail line that's going to allow me to get them to Singapore in a hurry if I need to. And while they're here, if a counterattack from Burma started to materialize, I'd have them available. So perhaps that contingency is what is occurring here. We're not really going to know until we get some recon on there. Other events for this turn, we took the last enemy base in the southern peninsular area of Burma. Not an especially important base, not a great deal of prizes for taking it. And now we've ended up with this enemy unit in the mountains over here, which I think we're going to have to track down, because we can't allow him to step onto this rail line. So, I mean, I don't know, do I want to like chase him through the mountains? Probably not. Probably not. I actually think maybe the best thing to do is to just remove this regiment from the base, which doesn't have a garrison requirement, send him back to Tavoy where he's needed, and then, you know what, if this guy wants to step back and reoccupy the base, that's fine. I'll just come back to the base later. I guess my other option is I could have somebody sit on the rail lines, but he's got 2 hexes he could move into, potentially. I guess I could just notice which way his direction indicator leader is pointing, and just whichever hex that is, I can put the blocking force in that one, and then if he changes direction, I can win that race, because I have at least the trails along the railroad, if not the minor road itself. And the minor road does actually affect both of these hexes. So I'll have the benefit of the minor road. Yeah, I don't know. It's tedious, very tedious. We did not attack this unit between Patani and Alor Star due to fatigue. Fatigue is still high, but I don't want to wait forever. Still have 2 enemy subs present here. I had destroyers here. It looks like they've left station. It's probably these guys. Did you really need to replenish already? We've got 2,000... Okay, because one of the ships ran out of depth charges. Both of them left to rearm. I guess that makes sense. Alright, so... I'm going to have to get more ASW ships on station there, and maybe if there's a decent-sized port, I can have them rearm locally, or maybe even get a destroyer tender in here locally to support better ASW operations. Although, I don't know. I don't think there's going to be that many enemy subs operating off the Malayan coast for that much longer, so moving a destroyer tender might not be necessary or wise. So, our strike on Singapore was not all that lucrative. Oh wow, like at least 3 submarines in base too. 34 ships total. Yeah, we gotta hit these guys. We've really gotta hit these guys. And, you know, these fighter numbers aren't gonna stay low forever. They could reinforce at any time. Maybe worth even splitting some attention between the port and the airfield, which might actually make a lot of sense, since, you know, if the Sallies are going to be going after the bigger ships and, you know, bouncing their bombs off their armor and not doing really much else, their attention might be better spent on the airbase anyways, and then we can start running their supplies down too with the airfield damage. Yeah, because we're not accumulating very much port damage at all. Interesting, we have a sighting on a task force here moving towards Singapore. Probably not an actual LST, so that's probably, I'm going to guess 4 AKLs, or 3 AKLs escorted by a minesweeper. The minesweeper is probably accurate. So that may be a supply run or something transporting a small unit, like maybe aviation support or something like that. If these guys are coming from Palembang, they made it through the minefield, and maybe past a submarine too. Not a lot of activity going on at Palembang. Let's see. Yeah, these guys did have naval attack orders, which they apparently didn't do. They didn't do their attack on them or their backup attack on Singapore. I hate it when planes stay on the ground. Had a recon sweep on Balikpapan. Basically looks undefended. And that's 9 out of 10, so that's pretty high confidence. We've unloaded a decent amount of aviation support. Not enough aviation support to match all the aircraft that we moved in last turn, but still pretty good. Let's see how the unloading is going. Base force nearly completely unloaded. These guys are actually loading, and even though I don't like to show you guys seeing me click buttons, I'm going to click that button while you're watching, because they can just go. Still 3 ships sighted in port, including 2 destroyers. If that's accurate, the third is probably what's left of HMAS Perth. At this point, I'm almost like 95% certain that Lexington and Enterprise are on the bottom. We've ruled out Dilly. We can probably rule out Alor. Can probably rule out Pantar. So I'll keep the recon moving up these bases. Really, there's so few places they can go. And we just hit Darwin, so if they manage to move a greater distance, I'm fairly sure the Vals would have bombed the carriers and not minesweepers if there were carriers present. So that really just leaves Surabaya as a possible holdout, and their shipyard sucks, so they're not going to get those ships truly seaworthy if they were there. We still have 3 submarines sighted outside Babel. Maybe someday we will have ASW success. We've got 3 DMSs hunting these 2 subs, and they've basically been there for like a week with no result. We've recently landed a Naval Guard unit, and hopefully that's only a partial unit, because, wow, that's weak. It is really weak. And they're pretty much at full strength. Usually, oh, because it's 381, so this is a third of a Naval Guard unit. Not going to be enough to take on the garrison at Iolio. Now, there's another task force that's headed this way. Or so I thought. Oh, yes, it's these guys. I'll go ahead and cancel their supply orders, too. So we'll have 2. And hopefully this is a full Naval Guard or a full Marine unit. So that'll be better. And of course we are starting to use our Mabels to bomb this enemy base to support that. I was happy to see I did not suffer an attack from these suspected enemy tanks, although we're now up to 3 units. With more troops and guns. AFE was originally 50, it's up to 146, so we're seeing basically weakened tank battalions moving into this space. And it looks like the indicator is saying they're still doing that, which means I need to cancel all my bombardment orders here. Because, you know, the old saying, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. If he wants to move units out of Clark and into Cabantuan, I want that to happen. Cabantuan's open. Clark is jungle, right? Jungle rough. That's a +3 defensive bonus at Clark versus a 0 defensive bonus at Cabantuan. I want to fight him at Cabantuan. I want to bomb him at Cabantuan. So please, if he wants to move more, he's welcome to. And if I end up more or less sacrificing 3rd SNLF and this artillery regiment to accomplish that, I'm okay with that. I believe we saw activity at Pago Pago. Yes. Okay, so we have ships confirmed in port and transports with escorts. So that may give me a reason to actually take a little bit of a risk and bring submarines into the Hex. Maybe we get a chance to torpedo these guys in port, since this is only a port size 2. Port size 3 is where we draw the line on that. Yeah. It's a chance, but it could be worth it if we are able to torpedo them before they offload too many of their troops. We also spotted a task force at Los Angeles, but we don't know who. And some light merchant traffic at San Diego. Doesn't look like we have anything going on at Pearl. We did land our troops at Rabaul, and all indications are it's every bit as weak as we thought it was going to be. I don't see why 2/3 of a division wouldn't be able to take out 6,000 troops that are barely armed with anything big. So these guys should go down pretty easy. Got aviation support and anti-aircraft approaching Rabaul. These guys are just going to be picking up these units and putting them somewhere more useful. And then construction engineers, along with some more AA for Rabaul, take care of that base damage and start building it up. Currently a size 3 airfield. Its natural airfield size is 6, so there's very clearly cause to build this base up. And then those same amphibious ships are going to start moving stuff out into the Solomons. Carrier Division 3 has quite a bit of ways more to go before it's providing mutual support to Division 1. But we're getting there. And we've got really good surveillance all over the place, so the chance of us running into some kind of ambush in the Torres Strait is pretty low. Submarines, of course, are a concern, but with the amount of submarines operating up here, that's a bit less. So then one last thing I want to check before leaving this off is just the operations report, and I want to see if we see the word hit in capital letters anywhere here, because we have so many aircraft operating on ASW that it would be really nice to see that some of them are hitting enemy submarines. It looks like we have no such... Oh, yes we do. We have one instance of a reported hit, and that's it. So this is an Anne attacking at 5172. Where is maybe Singora? Yes. So we are claiming to have hit one of these submarines by this squadron. Did they actually do it? Who knows? There's a lot of false submarine-related claims. I would not consider this an ASW proficient unit by any means. So take that report for what it's worth. With that, I will get busy with the setup, and we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.